Thank you all for coming. It's a good turnout, I'm pleased to say, and or pleased to see, should I say. And hopefully we'll have some good discussions. And Ian, I know you've got a couple of questions that we thought we'd start off with just to get the elephant in the room out of the way.
They're not from me. So we've got Richard Quick and Richard Walker have both emailed in with questions about the lease on the ground, how are discussions proceeding, etc. And Richard also says thank you to the chairman, directors and staff for doing their best in difficult times. But the lease is the main meat of the matter.
Oh, I was rather hoping it was the other bit. The situation with the lease is that I'm in discussion with the trustees about lengthening or issuing a new lease. That is the situation at the present time. The situation is somewhat different from as we anticipated it at previous, or my previous meeting with Savills and also previous fans forum here. Because it was always assumed that the trustees would sell the land to a builder and then we would negotiate with the builder about terminating our staying here, and they would look to provide us with a new home. 4 years after I actually first started negotiations, well, not with the trustees, but 4 years since I met with Savills, they haven't sold the ground at all. And if I'm going to be brutally honest, I suspect they probably can't sell it to a builder. We've got a few things going on now. You've got the government saying that they only want building on brownfield sites, not on greenfield sites, and that is going to be an issue. And then you've got the sort of the Tracy Crouch situation coming along, and although she hasn't specifically talked about the ownership or the building on football grounds, you can see the way in which the wind is blowing there, and again planners are going to be very, very wary of granting planning consent. Therefore, I think it's a very different situation now that the trustees are in, and I don't think that selling the ground, if they were going to sell it, they'd have sold it a few years ago. So I don't think selling it to a builder is now an option for them, and as I say, I'm talking to them about issuing a new lease for occupation of the Rainland.
Now, first off, just the crowds recently have obviously dipped from what they were last season, and perhaps I know we've had COVID, etc. But is there sort of any particular concerns regarding that, and what are we looking to do as a club to attract back those fans that have perhaps dropped away from following, and also to attract new fans into the club?
It's an interesting question actually, because it does impact upon finance. And our average crowd this season, I mean, it is a strange season, or the last two years and this one have been a strange time as well. How many fans are not coming because they're a bit worried about being in close contact with other people sitting around or standing around, I honestly don't know. But our average crowd is certainly more than 100 down on previous seasons. On a weekly and for home games, probably near 150, and it's diminished as the season. We've had 2 poor home attendances. I suspect they were impacted, unfortunately, because some people only want to come and watch a winning team, and if you lose a game, suddenly the crowd goes down. Strangely, you don't tend to get that in the Premier League, where, irrespective of where people are in the league, the fans seem to continue to support them on a regular basis. However, that's an aside. If we've got 150 less people here on an average, that probably represents nearly £1,500. £1,500, 4 games a month is the average for home games. That's 6,000 quid. And it doesn't take a brilliant mathematician to work out that if you're losing or not getting that sort of money coming in, it certainly means that we can't afford to spend more money on supporting Steve and the team and bringing in more players or paying higher wages. That in turn may mean, because we've certainly got, and I know Steve has views on this we've got a couple of teams in our league this season who are spending huge amounts of money, almost as if begging to get out of the league, though I rather suspect we'll be begging to see them back in again 12 months later, because they won't keep up the finances in the National League South. But if the crowd goes down, we can't afford to spend more money. It's as simple as that. Therefore, we would like to get the crowd back. The easy way, isn't it, Steve, is to start winning more games. But that's the sort of the impact. It does have an impact, and it's not a positive impact. And the more we can, but I do think that if we can get some of the performances back and get the players back from injury and get the team playing, those of you who were here on Tuesday, from a personal point of view, I thought it was one of the best team performances that we've seen for quite some time. They really played together as a team, and I thought it really showed and demonstrated what can be done. Even though we were still missing a few well-known players, Marvin Brooks was missing, Josh Summerton's still missing, Ollie Knowles was missing. There's a number of people who you would normally expect to see in the first team, but I thought it was a really good performance, and if we can start replicating that on a more regular basis, I'm sure we'll see the fans returning.
So, staying on the, I won't stand up, staying on the attendance, quite a few people have been complaining there's no cash entry and they just can't be bothered going through the process of buying tickets online or even coming to the office on match day to buy tickets. Is there any consideration of having a cash turnstile?
Jim, do you want to answer that?
I was going to say, you're looking at me, Bob. You're looking at me, Bob.
I was looking at everybody in the front. Not really Steve, but no offense.
I'll get the blame for everything else.
Why not, Steve?
The reason we went cashless is because of a thing called COVID. And that's because with cash, you've got multiple handlings of any cash coming through the turnstiles, being transported to the office. Ian then has to spend his days counting the cash, only a day now, because obviously there's a lot less cash. Then the cash has been transported down to the bank, so it's handled multiple times. The evidence for people getting COVID from handling cash, I think, is probably scant. I think in those early days it was don't touch anything, you might catch COVID. So I think that's less of an issue now. But cash does carry quite a large overhead in terms of the process that goes on behind the scenes, rather than the buying tickets online and even card payments. And I think we're now down to a much smaller number of people who want to pay by cash. We were originally told that it was very much the older fans. I don't know how old you have to be an older fan, but I think it's fair to say I think the older fans have adapted to the change brilliantly.
But there are a lot of people, Jim, that actually come to the gate.
So I know there's
And they actually come to the gate, and when we say to them,
Can I finish?
cash.
Can I finish?
Yeah, sorry, but yeah.
So I know there is now a hardcore, and we don't want to lose that hardcore because of cash. But all those risks, and as I say, that overhead associated with cash is still there. So we are very much looking to the future to drive sales to online tickets, because that's the most efficient way of doing it. And it's the most efficient way of getting through the turnstiles if you bought a ticket online. Next one is card payments. We're actually, today or tomorrow, having
Next couple of days.
having new card machines which are faster than the ones we've got at the moment. So that again will help the processing time. Having said all of that, we will be introducing one cash turnstile, and we will probably do that from the Yet game. I was thinking of doing it for Gosport, but we probably will start from Yet. But what I would ask is if you could then still encourage people to go cashless, because as I say, we still got that overhead of actually handling cash, and the beauty of the online ticket sales is the money goes straight into the bank. The card sales, the money's in the bank the following day. Cash, it has to be counted by Ian, and
It's a huge time. And
then it's got to be we've got to get it down to the bank. We pay all our bills So we pay transfers now. We don't pay people by cash. So we have to do something with that cash in order for that cash to be used.
I was asking for, as you know, a season ticket, so I was asking for somebody else.
But it does happen, Jim. We have a lot of people do actually come to the gate.
I think it's not a lot of people anymore because I see the cash that comes into.
Well, yeah, because they walk away.
I can't believe they walk.
I can't personally believe anybody goes, oh, I'm not paying by card. Like,
I can-
everybody goes into Tesco's, wherever, and
I
pays
can
by
assure
card.
you
Like,
they do, Pete.
I mean, you get these people
I think
that...
our fans have got to accept that Salisbury Football Club is going to move with the times.
Yeah, well, no, don't get me wrong. I agree with you, Jim. I'm just saying the things that actually happen.
I think continuing this discussion is a bit of a waste of everybody's time. As Jim has said, we went to the cards for a positive reason. We know there are a few people who do not wish to pay by card and wish to pay by cash, and probably from the next home game, or if not the next home game but the one after that, we will be allowing people in on one of the turnstiles through a cash facility.
Just like to talk to
Nigel?
I've got two questions, if I could, please. One, I think is one of the elephants in the room, and that's injuries. We seem to be plagued with injuries here. We've had a lot this season already. We've had a lot. What little of the season there was last season. Is there any? We've seen Mark Povey's article about COVID having an effect on muscle fibres and a lot of stuff there. Seems to be a lot of hamstring injuries or groin injuries where it's stretching. So is there any school of thought what's causing that? Is the pitch too hard or we're not warming up properly, or training off? Is there any sort of school of thought what causes the injuries? And the other question is if you're willing to share your views about how the Southern League managed to previous seasons and the curtailment. Because I certainly felt, and I don't think it's any secret, that the amount of information they put out on Twitter was poor. They always seemed to be from a position of they wanted to protect their own little fiefdom, and they didn't want to get into a position where they might make a decision that somebody might challenge. And they looked for the easy way out every time, and they didn't seem to consider the fan base or what the fans wanted, or actually trying to get football on. They seemed to take every opportunity there was to stop football being played.
You ran out of tape in the camera, Nigel.
Yeah, I mean, obviously injuries are a concern. We've spoken about this. We're not doing anything really differently to what we've done before, so it is a bit of a it's a difficult one to understand. We just, like yesterday, Shawnee's trained with us last night, and he was set to play Saturday, and he's just running into his knees blown up. We trained on the 4G, and it's just his knees reacted to the 4G. I don't know is the honest answer. Ollie Knowles is back, has plagued him all season. Is that the driving? We've tried to rest him at times. We've tried to say to him don't travel. We are fit. We train hard. The side is fit. They do an awful lot of gym work. I don't know how much cardio they do. They do seem to do an awful lot of gym work, these lads nowadays. But I don't know. I think COVID has played a part. But you're right, Nigel. We've had this for 5 years since I've been here. I can remember, a plethora of injuries every season.
Yeah.
Right, going back to Wessex actually. I remember the last 3 months of the Wessex, and we were absolutely bereft of players even then. So honestly, I don't know. We are a side that have a little bit more of the ball, so you are going to pick up more injuries if you've got more of the ball, because you're likely to get more, suffer more tackles. That's that Arsenal sort of thing where the more ball you have, the more times you're going to get hit, which is one of those things. But I honestly, for the life of me, we've gone through it. We've tried every which way, and it's just one of those things that we're just unlucky with. I think it's not an awful lot we can do. We've tried just about everything, and nothing seems to work. In all honesty, the lads are fit. You look at them. I'm a big one on looking right, and I'm always. I was going to say looking in the showers, but I don't mean it in that way. The one or two players that do look as if they're carrying a little bit, I'm onto them. They're given a programme. they lose that weight immediately. They're all, none of them are carrying extra weight. You get some teams down here, and honestly, you look at them and you think, wow, how they wouldn't even, they wouldn't get anywhere near our club. So they're fit lads. They look after themselves. That's one of the prerequisites of coming here. So I don't know, in all honesty. It's certainly not a lack of fitness. It's not a lack of core strength. We test them most weeks. The work that we do with them shows that they are strong and fit. So, in all honesty, I don't know. We've been over it time and time again, mate. So all I can put it down to, we're just, we're very, very unlucky. I've been very unlucky, put it that way. So, and this season's been hard work in that respect, I've got to say. So,
As to the criticism of the league, I don't realistically know what else could have been done last season particularly. The season before, I was driving across Bodmin Moor on my way to Truro when the email came through from the Southern League to say that they curtailed the season. Well, they were temporarily curtailing the season, though in actual fact, of course, it stayed curtailed for the rest of the year. But I think that was probably a bit knee-jerk because nobody really understood what this COVID thing was. But immediately after that game, we had lockdown. And once you've got lockdown, there really wasn't any viable alternative but to curtail the season. Whether or not they should have considered promotion and relegation based on a points per game, you would find probably 50% would say of teams would have said one thing and 50% would have said the other thing. Certainly the ones near the top of the league would say yes, we should have been allowed promotion. The ones at the bottom of the league would have said no, we shouldn't be relegated because we would have had the opportunity to finish the season and we would have won it all. So I think it would have been very difficult at that stage. Last season, of course, we only had a very, very small number of games before the whole thing was called off. Yes, the National League and the National Leagues North and South continued for the season, but they were playing behind closed doors. At our level, you could not possibly support a team playing behind closed doors. So whilst whether it was the right or wrong thing to do from a Salisbury FC point of view, it was the only alternative that we had. We were actually kept afloat last season by government and FA grants and loans, etc., because otherwise, and furloughing the players as well, the ability to furlough the players. If we'd had to continue to play, Salisbury FC would have gone bust halfway through last season. It's as simple as that. Therefore, as far as I'm concerned, there was no alternative but for that season to be curtailed in the way that it was.
Was there a question in the back, wasn't there?
Yeah, just going back to the ticket sales. Did we sell the same season tickets this season as last season, or more or less?
It's slightly less, not hugely, but it is a little bit down. Certainly, we're aware in the office of some season ticket holders, but bear in mind, it's 2 years since we had a proper season, and in those 2 years, some of our more older supporters have either become infirm or in some cases, a few have passed away in the last couple of years. So the season ticket sales are slightly less, not hugely, but they are slightly less.
But obviously from a financial perspective, this year it is less because we offered the discount this year for people who paid the full price last year. Therefore we're about £10,000 down on income this year, although a number of season ticket holders were generous in making effectively a donation of the balance of the shortcoming. But we are about £10,000 down on the sale of season tickets purely because of the discount that we felt obliged to offer because people didn't have the opportunity to watch the games last season.
Fair enough. Shall I do a few from emails, Ian? Yeah.
These for Steve.
Yeah, these are for Steve, yeah.
I had my share.
Got your seatbelt on, Steve. Here we go. This one is from Darryl Lee Jones. Thanks for the question. Apparently, you publicly stated on social media that you're not interested in the development team. Do you have any interest in developing local players through the youth scheme at all? And do you have any plan moving forward? If not, should the development players just move to other clubs and away from Salisbury altogether, as it's clear you're not interested in them?
I don't need to answer the question, does he? He's asked and answered, hasn't he? That is quite ridiculous, and that is typical of what really gets to me. What I would like, it's a misnomer anyway, the question, because what I'd like to do is, first and foremost, can you please produce the piece that I have said I'm not interested in the development side? I've just spent 8 hours on the pitch putting the divots back for the development side to play on a decent surface on Saturday. That's how disinterested I am in the development side. So it's not even worth answering, because it's actually an untruth. And I don't need to answer that. I mean, as I say, I'm as interested as the next person in it. You know, I want to see. I'm like everybody else. If we could pick 11 local lads, that would be perfect. But it isn't going to happen.
Save expenses, wouldn't it?
Well, there we go. The balance is you've got to win games of football and also give people the opportunity. And that is always going to be the balance. And it's easy. People come and say, play this youth team player, play that youth team player. You know, we lose the next 3. It won't be the person who said play that youth team player who's going to get the stick. It will be me. So I have to get a balance between getting results, like we said. We don't get results. People don't turn up. You know, we don't. You know, so you can't please all the people all the time. But that is a ridiculous question, because it's actually a total and utter untruth.
Okay, we'll do one more from the email and then offer it to the floor again. This one's from Dave Dragg. From all teams, both our own and our opposition, we see varying degrees of input from the technical area during games. In the main, the amount of tactical guidance from Steve seems to be less, sometimes far less, than the opponents. Is this a conscious decision or management style? And if so, how else does Steve get the messages across?
So you've actually picked out all of my fans, haven't you, to ask me? Brilliant.
They just turn up at the desk.
Look, one person will say you don't say enough, somebody else will say you say too much. No one can question my tactical ability. I can tell you that now, because we have to work so hard to put teams together with the amount of injuries that we have and get a team and a system out that suits. So it's been very, very difficult. We know the best side that we can put out, but we have not since day one been able to do that. Look, I've worked with Tom Whelan. Tom Whelan came from Millfield School. And I got him. He was, with all due respect, Tom still rings me up and thanks me for what I did for him. Jack Sparks came out of Exeter, absolutely lost, and went back and he's now Exeter captain. Dom Jeffries came here, spent 3 months here. So it's the most he's ever learned. In the 3 months he was with me, he learned more with me in 3 months he did in 6 years at Newport. So you can question, you can have your opinion, Dave Dragg, and I'm fine. No, I'm saying, and that's fine. I have no issues with that. But when you are constantly critical, that's when it doesn't make sense. And when you constantly question everything, and when you run out of options, you just keep making up others to point the finger at. Then obviously, I understand that it's not quite what he's saying. It's something that he's just making up as he goes along, because that's how he wants to keep questioning me as the manager. So no matter what I did, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't suit Dave. No, I understand that, and you can't please all the people all the time. So he's quite entitled to his opinion. I have no issues with that whatsoever, as long as it stays as his opinion and it doesn't become what it has on some occasions from other people.
You've got 2 more questions coming up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anybody in the room got any questions?
Not yet.
Hey, go on, mate. We need you active.
Just a sort of a football related question. I often think we're quite a quiet side.
We are, absolutely.
Is that sort of, obviously, players that are loud vocal speakers, they don't grow on trees, some can be expensive. Is it more a case of trying to give the players the confidence to sort of come out of themselves and get that, or finding the right personalities?
So we actually did a session on last Thursday on purely and simply talking. You can talk, we can all talk. There's absolutely no excuse for players not to talk.
Yeah.
But for 4.5 years we've had a quiet side. Don't ask me why, but we've had a quiet side, and I have constantly, every week, we talk about communication. Communication can win you a game on its own if you are prepared to. And it's not even. It's everyone can say time, man on. Just that little bit of communication that allows people to find out what's around them. Not many people. We're not all Dennis Bergkamp. We've got that peripheral vision, but that little bit of communication makes such a difference. But I've honestly, it's one of my bugbears that we've gone on for 4.5 years. Communication. And I don't know what the reason is, but they do not take it on board. It's not something that they do naturally. And we keep on, and we keep on, and we keep on. And I genuinely, there are things that we've been remiss, no doubt about that, with what we've done and what I've done as a manager, but that certainly isn't one of them. That has been a non-stop directive since I've been at the club, because everybody can talk. We can't all put a ball in the top corner, we can't all bring a ball down out of the sky, but we can all talk. And I don't get it because it makes such a difference. If you see other teams come here, they'll fall over, they'll get round the ref. I don't want us to do that. I've seen some games here. I think we played one game where I actually timed the amount of time the ball was in play in 15 minutes. It was 6 minutes. Because they were either arguing with the referee, they were going down, feigning injury, the goalie kept going down, the game never ever got started. We'd done nearly a third of the second half, and we hadn't kicked a ball. Because of the way, now I don't want us to do that. That's not the way that I want. I want us to entertain. I want us to play football. But we do have to at times be more streetwise, and we do have to know how to manage games, and certainly communicate with people. You're absolutely right. It's so frustrating because we can all do that.
Anyone else, or should we do a few more from Dave Drake?
Oh, come on, just put your hand up, please.
So, question for Steve Claridge from Dave Drake. What is the approach, expectation to first team training? If we have a game on Tuesday, would we train on Thursday? If this is not the case during busy periods, does Steve think this gives us a disadvantage over other clubs who do train every week?
I think we have a consideration. If we play on a Tuesday and we've played well, and we've got a long trip on a Saturday, or the boys look tired, and we always do it. Obviously, you've got to ask them how they feel. Generally, we would look to train on a Wednesday if we haven't got a game, and a Tuesday, possibly a Wednesday. We trained last night on a Wednesday, or a Thursday. I think what people have got to understand is we do not have a huge amount of local talent, and that might, everyone's going to be a bit aghast at that, but there is not a huge amount of people. So you then have to cast your net a little bit further and a little bit wider. So then you are taking consideration, and we used to train Thursdays religiously, but people were coming in on a Thursday, a couple of hours to get in, so straight from work. They would then train with us for an hour and a half, 2 hours. They would then go back, go home. They would get in around midnight, gone midnight. See, then they're still pumped because they're training. Go to sleep. They would be up early. They would work all day. They go to bed on Friday and be up early Saturday to get in here again. So it was quite tiring for some of them. So it is always a case of looking and seeing how they are. You've got to look after them. This is not full time. These are players who, this is a part-time football club. So you're asking them, a lot of them leave work, they're coming in their work gear, most of them, because they're straight from work, straight into training. So I have to consider, what's right and what's wrong. If we don't play well on a Tuesday, then we're on training. If we play well on a Tuesday, our reward generally is that we give them the Thursday off, so that they're okay for Saturday. But it's a straw poll almost. You've got to look at it and analyse. Do they look tired? How do they feel? They don't dictate, but you've also got to consider what they actually have to go through, throughout the week.
Another question for Mr. Claridge from Dave Drake. We do thank you for these, Dave. Other than injuries, he accepts that we've had more than our fair share.
Yeah.
What does Steve put our inconsistent performance? That was in capital letters. Inconsistent performances this season. I'm not going to shout it. And to a point, previous seasons too. What do you put that down to, Steve?
Previous seasons.
Inconsistencies.
So previous seasons we've had 2 promotions and 2 playoffs, and we were unbeaten last year. So that's incredibly inconsistent. You're right. This year has been a nightmare from start to finish. I think ever since Sam got sent off against Truro, I don't think we've put out our strongest side at all, ever this season. We're still 4 or 5 players down. I mean, last week was typical. At Farnborough, we're 0-0. I think we're holding our own. We're not. Don't get me wrong. We're not pulling them apart, but we're not in any real problems. And Michael goes off with a groin strain, and then we've got no left back. We put Charlie Kennedy out there simply because that's the only player that we have who can play in that position. So we've got nobody else. Josh isn't fit, and they score from that area. And I don't think they would have if Michael had been fit. So I'm not making excuses. Nigel, you pointed out that the injuries have been horrendous this year. Absolutely horrendous. And we've never ever got ahead of the game. I don't feel like we've ever got ahead of the game in that respect. There are so many things that need to be said about the football side and this football club. And I'm really pleased that the chairman's come out and been so candid, because people don't understand what's happening here. This club has never been in the Conference South, and this club has never been in the Conference. This club has been in the Wessex League, and it's been in the South and West. So that's something that we all have to understand. Portchester have been in the Wessex Premier for the last 5 years. They were in it when we were in it. Their budget was bigger than ours in the Wessex Premier. Okay? Graham Ricks was the manager. They had a side that finished second the previous year. We started that league with no players in the June. So we built a side in July. So the 6 weeks from July to August, the 6 weeks we built a side from 3 trial games and some training. We won that league by 20 points in my first season. Now, everyone will scoff and say it's a Wessex Prem. Portchester have a budget that's similar to ours in the Wessex Prem now, or 20 points off top. So everyone can scoff that the Wessex Prem was it. There is no league that is easy, particularly when you have no players in July. So that was a really, I mean, the lads who left, our top scorer Sam Wilson, 42 league goals, could not get in Folland's team the next year. So we must have been doing something like that year for us to do what we did. This is answers to good old Dave. South and West was tough, there's no doubt about that. We have never had a big budget here. We've had a budget that works for our football club. Our budget is the same now as it was 4 years ago when we finished third in this league. The difference, and this is what we have to get across to people, the difference is everybody else has moved on tenfold. And if you watched my interview with Ian a couple of weeks ago when Walton Casuals came down here. Now if Walton Casuals come down here and beat us, everybody out there, the world is going to end for everybody out there, because that is ridiculous. Walton Casuals beating Salisbury. Only when you put it in the context that Walton Casuals have a budget that's £1,000 a week more than ours, do you then understand why is that a big deal? Walton Casuals beat Salisbury now, and this is nothing to do with the chairman. This is Walton Casuals do not have the overheads that this football club has. They do not have the stewarding bill, the rent, the water, you name it, the boiler, you name it. What we have that they have. He can raise 60 grand a year from functions. We couldn't sell out 100 tickets for Tony Adams or John Motson. You know, this is what people don't get. They look at Walton Casuals and think, what, Little Walton on 100 people? Little Walton have a budget £1,000 bigger than mine. Taunton, we were equivalent of Taunton 3-4 years ago. Taunton now have, and you need to get this context, have 4 players that play up front for them. Not one of them earns less than £450 take home. Not one of them. Our front line, the 3 players we have, is 675 gross. Theirs is nearly 2 grand net. So you put that into context of what we're dealing with. 2 players came available last week from Chippenham. I did not get within £200 of those players. 200. Yet Weston and Taunton took them, just like that. They were able to take them. They seem to be able to keep going and going and going. Weston bid £6 grand for Tom Blair, £6,000 for Tom Blair, and were prepared to pay him nearly 700. They have a player on £750 for 4 years in Dalgrove. We are not. That is bankruptcy, like the chairman said. For us, that's administration and liquidation. And if you want to go down that route, that's fine, but it won't be with us. And all those people who keep pushing for more and more played a part in what happened previously at this football club. We are not prepared. We're prepared to be unpopular. We're prepared to say no, but we are not prepared to go down that route. But you have to understand, we've hit the ceiling now. This is our level. As much as you like it or don't like it, the Southern Prem is the level that we are at. But that's not to say we're not trying actively to get out of it. We are. We're all doing our best. But we are doing our best under really difficult circumstances. And when you think about clubs that come down here, and Big Salisbury, it's not Big Salisbury anymore. It's Salisbury that's being run properly. They're not being run properly because they cannot continue like that. Farnborough's playing budget, okay, and he does what he wants. Good luck to him. His budget has been poor for the last 4 or 5 years. Our budget has been bigger, and they finished accordingly. You know, bottom half, they've struggled. You know, if you took 6 of his players, that would take our budget out completely. Now, these are things that you have to understand. Leaves in no room for anybody else. I cannot go and pay £450, £500 per player. I have tried for a month on the phone constantly to get people in. Nobody does what I did. I had 4 people out last week. Jim and Taylor actually wouldn't pay the expenses to them. But anyway, 4 people out going to various games. I went to Hendon Saturday, 2.5 hours to get to Hendon in the rain. I went to Hartley on that Friday night. I went to Oxford. I've been to Reading. I've been everywhere looking at players. They are not out there. We are in the bit where we're not Conference South, so you don't get the best of the under-23s. They go to Conference or they go to Conference South. There's a boy who's just gone back to Oxford I was desperate to get. And he won't come because he's been at Hayes and they now want to put him in Conference South. He would have solved all our problems. Tom Blair was a perfect example of how this season's gone for us. We just had Tom Blair where we wanted him. He's a good player, Tom. He's a match winner. And we had him where we wanted him. He's with all due respect, we've struggled with wide players. Tom, I thought he played his best game here. I think was it Merthyr? I think it was Merthyr. It was his last game. Played his best game. I thought he played really well. And we had him we worked on him because he defensively out of possession, he wasn't good. So I said to Tom at the end of the game, Tom, that's your best part. I was really pleased with him. 2 hours later, he's gone. We called him back, he's gone to Weymouth. You know, and that summed up how it's gone for us this season. We've gone 1 step forward and 2 back because it's been constant in the way that we've either lost players to injury or we haven't been able to get them in. I had 2 players signed this Saturday and both have rung up on Tuesday and said, can't come, we're injured. You know, that has been a constant. Josh Somerton, who, regardless of what anyone says, makes a huge difference to our side. He's a fantastic player now, Josh. He really is. It takes us to another level. You know, everybody says, oh, you know, because I love it to death and all that. And by the way, Josh is going to sign another year at this football club. So Josh will be here this year and next year. So, which I think is a fantastic child. You know, that is the type of player that will take us to the next level. But what we need to do is we need to work through now. We need to work through and find out what's good enough and what isn't, and get that player that will take us next level. But it will not happen like it used to at Salisbury. It won't just happen where we can go bang 650, 700, 500. Do you know the last time this club was in the Southern Prem, it was full time? Now that is unbelievable. Full time in the Southern Prem. But it was, because it was a different club. And I'm not making excuses, I'm pointing out facts. This is how the club is. This is not the club of old. This is what we are. So if we have to spend a season this year finishing 10th in this level, then that's what we'll do. Because we will continue to run the club properly. And if it means that you don't come because we're not going to finish in the top 5, then I question whether or not you're a true supporter. Now, because true supporters keep coming. I'm a Pompey boy. Now, Pompey had a terrible start to the season, yet their ground has never gone less than 18,000. They didn't say, well, we've had a terrible start, I'm not going. Now, they said, I'm going to stick with it, and now it's turning around. Now, if it doesn't turn around, that's all well and good. We will win enough games to stand our ground. We'll win enough games to make you proud of your football club. We might not get top 5, but that doesn't mean to say we've underachieved. In fact, it probably means that we've overachieved in a way if we can finish top 10. Because our budget does not dictate that that's where we finish. But that doesn't mean to say that me and the chairman are going to settle for what we've got. That doesn't mean to say we're not going to try and get out of this league as hard as we possibly can. But you have to understand where we are. And ultimately, people can start shouting and screaming every time we get beat, because we are going to get beat. We will get beat at this level, there's no doubt about that. Simply because, you know, we get dwarfed by other people's budgets, and we get dwarfed by other people's, you know, personnel and the players that they have. But we will work towards our aim and our goal is, and that's to be successful. But it won't happen like it did before. We've hit the ceiling. This is where we are, and this is the club that we are, and you have to understand that. And if you don't like that, then I'm sorry, but that's how it is. And we'll run it and continue to run it properly, and that's what we do. And you're very, very lucky that you have somebody like that in charge, because all he wants is what's right and proper for the football club. He doesn't want to be popular. You've just heard him. He's not. You know, he's
He's not popular suddenly.
what you want to hear. That's not what he's here for, and that's not what I'm here for. We can all go on our egos and say, we want to make you happy, we want to be loved, and we want to be liked. But being loved and being liked puts you in liquidation, puts you in administration. Actually telling the truth and being honest and frank with people might not make you the most popular, but what it will do is mean that you've got a football club next year and the year after that and the year after that.
That's important.
Yeah.
Well done, Steve.
I think that answered Dave's question. In all seriousness, thanks very much to Dave Dragg, Richard Walker, Richard Quick and Darryl Lee Jones for sending their questions in. Anyway, well, back to me. Go on.
Firstly, I think what you've just said, completely agree. Any sensible person realises that there's a budget and to go over that would be stupid, so no issue.
Can I just 2 seconds? We spend as much money as Taunton, as Hayes.
On different bits, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so that's the bit. It's not like he's not spending.
No,
he's spending.
and I'm not about to turn around and
That's
say
what I'm
we've
saying.
got to spend X amount.
Yeah, he
I
spends
think
as much as
any
anybody.
sensible person totally agrees with that. It's more a two-part question. The first part is, what can we do to increase, like you said about Walton Casual's off-field revenue, what can we do to increase our off-field revenue and our match day revenue, be it the bar, the tea hut, etc. Is there anything we can do there? And secondly is more of a curious point of, I'm not doubting for 1 second what you're saying about other teams' budgets, but is there like a database of budgets, or more of a curious point, like how everybody seems to know.
You'll get true reflection, because I'll speak to someone, and Taunton took 3 players from us. 3 players from us.
Yeah.
They took them. And one of them came back to me, and I said, look, tell me what you're earning, and we'll try and do our best. He said, Gaffer, he said, I'm not even going to bother. He said, because you won't get anywhere near it. No. So, they'll come back to me and they'll go, 450 in the hand. What do you mean 450 in your hand? How can it be 450? Do they ask you what your tax code is? Do they say to you, well, you could be paying 55% tax, so that's another 55% on 450. That's not how they work. It's how we work, but it's not how they work. So if you were to say, what's your budget, what you'll see and what you'll get are 2 totally different things, Pete. That's what you have to understand, mate.
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand. I just always find it curious, almost.
Yeah,
not having a pop at anyone, I just always find it curious how everybody seems to know everyone.
Can I just say one other thing on that subject? Salisbury FC is actually a limited company, and its accounts are prepared by auditors and they are filed at Companies House. Therefore, our expenses and our income, etc., is there for anybody to see. That is not the situation with an awful lot of clubs. A lot of them are community clubs, they're partnerships, they're owned by an individual, etc., and therefore their finances are much more obscure than ours are. Therefore, to a great extent, what Steve has to go by is what he's told by the managers and the people he knows within the game, and also the players that we lose to other clubs. And I know one of the players we lost at Taunton, he was given a company car. Well, I'm sorry, it's a different world now. But as he was saying, just because we think that this is the sort of level that we should be in, does not mean to say that we want to try and get out of it.
Oh, absolutely.
And do our very best to do so. Because if the crowds come because they want to see a winning club, you could argue, well, if we could get out of this league, we would have a bigger crowd, etc., etc. But you've got to bear in mind that if we had a bigger crowd, and also a bigger club, in a different league, the players would probably want more money. To survive in that environment would require certainly new players, etc., etc. But that doesn't mean to say we wouldn't try. But realistic, I mean, the fact we've been in the playoffs at this level, it doesn't show that. I mean, to be perfectly honest, when we lost to Met Police 3 years ago, was it? I really felt that we were going to go through and get promoted in that year. I really did think we were going to go up. If it wasn't for a certain Mr. Partridge, I think we probably would have been. That's a historic fact of life, I'm afraid.
Can I just say,
but we will certainly keep trying, but our finances are in the public domain and anybody can look at them.
it feels like, Pete, that we've not stood still, but we've somehow, and I don't know how, everybody else has gone on to another level that I don't understand how they can do that. All I can put it down to is that we, as I say, peripherally we play an awful lot of money outside of football, and that's where our problem lies. It's not with the football side. We cannot compete in that respect, and as I say, everybody's. I mean, Walton Casuals would not have had a budget like that 3 years ago. We were competitive. You know, our budget was competitive 3.5 years ago. We could compete with Taunton, we could compete with Tiverton, we could compete with those sides, 4 players. Now, we're totally uncompetitive. And I don't know how they've managed to go from where they were to where they are now. Without getting themselves in, they must have some sort of backing, or they're going to find themselves in trouble. But I know, there are one-offs. Farnborough, a one-off, I think. Spencer might have sold a property and he's invested in the club, whatever. But we have to just stay stable. We can't, because they've done that, it doesn't mean to say that we can do that, because we're just not in a position to do that.
I don't think any sensible person thinks we should be spending more than we've got. We should spend what we've got, and
that's what we do.
I mean, I've been coming up here long enough to know what happens when you spend more than
Well, you go to administration twice and get liquidated.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a kit man, and Mickey will tell you this. The kit man back then was on £200 more a week than our highest paid player now, and that's 52 weeks a year. We pay 38. The manager more than my entire playing budget in the Wessex Prem. So it's not the same club. Salisbury City Football Club and Salisbury FC are 2 totally different clubs. This club's never been in conference, it's never been in Conference South. It's been in the Wessex Prem and it's been in the South and West, and that is what we're trying to get across.
Yeah. Can I just come in on Pete's other point about additional revenue?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I didn't know they got lost in amongst them.
Because we are trying to do other things. Obviously, if we can get additional revenue streams, that obviously all helps come back into the club. And allows Steve to pay all this money to or expenses for scouts to go to places. We started Carboot, for instance, back in September. That's proved to be really, really successful. The last one took 600 quid. That came back into the club. We want to get music nights going up here. We're looking at maybe changing our drinks provider. I'm not going to name anyone, but that should actually mean drinks will be not necessarily cheaper behind the bar.
There'll only be water.
That will enable us to get BT Sport back here.
Yeah, that was going to be a question about the
BT Sport. We signed up to BT Sport, and what they did the following year was they changed their game from the midday game to the 5:30 game. And we struggled to get people to stay for the 5:30 game. They have promised me that they will have the midday game for the next 3 years. So if we can do the drinks deal with a reduced BT Sport, we can perhaps make that work. And obviously BT Sport, you've got all the Champions League, etc. So we are looking at additional ways of bringing money into the club to offset the drop in season ticket sales, drop in attendances. We lost Berry Telecom, who was our main sponsor last year, so again, less money coming in from sponsorship. He is not doing a very good job to replace them, I have to say. But all those things means that there's less money to go around, particularly into the playing side. So if we can get money coming in from other directions, then that all will help eventually go.
I did a bit of work this afternoon looking at some old accounts, and just out of interest, the cost or the proportion of our total income, if I knock off You know, there's no point looking at the bar sales if you don't knock off the cost of the beer, etc. in the first place. But if you look at their net income, the cost of running the Raymac, including rent, the gas, electricity, water, pitch maintenance, etc., it's almost 25% of our total income goes on running this place. Now that is far, far greater than the Walton Casuals, the Hendons, the whoever you wish to come across. And that does limit the amount of availability, of money availability, that's there for Steve to spend on the players.
I think as well, what you've got to put in context is that when you said rent, it's not really rent, is it? Because you know, I've got houses, and I rent my house. If the boiler breaks down, I put it right. We are responsible for that as well. So we pay what we pay, but we also fix what we fix. So it's a bit of a double whammy.
Basically, not saying it's the upkeep.
But we pay for the use of this property. We don't rent it, we pay for the use of it. There's a difference. We then have to look after all the bills and take on everything.
It's upkeep and ground maintenance.
Exactly. So, like I say, when the bulkhead goes wrong in the wall turn, we get a bill of 10 grand. That's his responsibility, not the man. So this is where we have to understand. Yeah.
Effectual play budget in the long run.
Yeah, always. But then you know, that it is what it is. But it's trying to get across. That's how it is. And let's say we spend money. Club's not. It doesn't spend money, but we don't have the luxury of spending it solely on players.
I think this one point there. I wouldn't criticise it. I was just saying.
I'm
I was just saying. On the upkeep of the ground, most of these clubs do not have.
A lot of them, like council run and things like that, they don't have the cost.
They don't. It's peppercorn rent most of it, and most of it's like you say, it's council that don't charge them anything. Farnbury was saying to me the other day, they Rushmore Council own two grounds. They charge £1 for the other ground, and he said we're going to get ours for £1. And that's you know, you consider what we pay. Yeah, we've got two players, literally two players going out for rent on this place that would come to this football club. So it is what it is.
As I think Steve mentioned in his last web thing, because of the issues with the entrances, etc., and the security of the Salts, it costs us roughly £350 in for poor old John at the back there. I couldn't see him. In stewarding every home game, the steward, we have to have a certain number of stewards, and it costs us about £350. Well, £350 is quite a lot of people coming in through the gate. And that's not money that we've then got available to spend on something else. As Steve said, that's at least one player. It's great to be here, but it has an impact upon the finances of the club, which cannot be ignored.
I think you've got to look at when you go anywhere else. I mean, you're lucky to see one man and his dog, aren't you? Steward. There's never any stewards.
Haven't seen the dog.
Yeah. And I mean, we were down at Taunton last year. They had the mobile sort of thing that was selling beers, and they were all taking their beers all around the ground, and you know, it just doesn't happen here. Not allowed to do that.
Is that a legal requirement for stewards? Then must be a legal requirement.
So it's lovely, but it's also it takes some looking after.
Can I just mention the supporters club? We have certain functions that we do during the year. I mean, I think you usually come to, say, our race night. Well, this last one, we had 15 people turn up. You know, we're trying our best. We do a wonderful job, the 50-50.
I haven't won for a long time.
That's the reason.
I'm not sure. I think round about how much have we given since the club's?
Just under 70,000 since the club has been formed.
Yeah, 70,000.
That's
Brilliant.
Which I think is fantastic, to be honest.
No, I think the club is very lucky to have such an active and supportive supporters club. And and also the other big thing, of course, is the supporters club help with taking fans to away games. which also helps the team because they feel as if they're being supported when they're away from home, and it's not just they have and the number of away fans that come here for the majority of games is minimal. It's only one or two clubs that really bring a handful, a decent number of people. Whereas when we go away to places, you can really hear and see the Salisbury fans who are there, and it's a big help, and it's largely due to the efforts of the supporters club. Thank you.
And also, the club has put on events as well as the sports club. We have exactly the same problem. People out their front doors around this local area seems to be very tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, if people can get along and support the things we do put on, it does really help.
Well, I came a couple of weeks ago when Jim put a band on.
Just you two raving, wasn't it?
And I was the only one in. Apart from the groups. Groupies.
Well, was Gordon.
We are hopefully after the 8th game, we're going to have a band in here. The state of the band is changing as we speak, so I'm not going to say anything.
I think one or two bands.
And the players are going to be up here as well. And that's one of the things I say has been a struggle in the past, is keeping fans here after the games. So again, we're looking at maybe trying to put things on that will keep the fans here for an hour or two after the games.
I always look at a lot of other teams and one suggestion which I thought was quite good, that they give £1 off a pint of beer every time their team wins. Oh, that was quite good.
Why are we going to make money then?
We wouldn't make anything.
Do they increase the pound if they lose then?
Do we add a pound if we lose?
We make money. They increase it by a pound if we lose. We make a lot more money that way, wouldn't we?
I think what you're actually saying is right. And what, you know, when you say about raising money, it is quite a difficult area to do that. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I go back to where we're from, and I mean, Portchester put on a do, and they'll have somebody you would have even heard of, and they'll sell 100 tickets overnight. And yet we said we trying to put on. You bring John Watson on his farewell tour, and we struggled to get rid of 100 tickets. It was a real stretch. Tony Adams come in, struggled to get rid of 100 tickets. I don't know anywhere else in the country where you'd struggle to sell out on those two people. So, you know, you try different ways, but if it's not there, it's not there. And that's something we've got to accept.
I think you find that as a malaise in your local area. If you've got a South Wales Sports Club, you know, that used to be quite lively.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just might be that sort of area night. So, I mean,
we're in the middle of an estate as well, but you thought that would help, wouldn't it?
It's very hard to get around the front door. Luckily, John Watson did drink the bar dry that night, so that did help. Another thing that does save this club huge amounts of money is all the volunteers that turn up on not just Tuesdays, but Tuesdays, Fridays, match days. It saves this club an absolute fortune. So if anybody else does want to get involved in that, Tuesdays are real busy days when a lot of people turn up. I thought you were going to ask for a round of applause there, John. You're putting your hands up. It does save a huge amount of money for the club. You know, everything that gets done around this club is normally done by a volunteer who just give up hours and hours of time.
Just got to come in on a Tuesday, mate.
Just got to come on Tuesday.
It's absolutely, it's unbelievable.
It's a really friendly atmosphere.
It is incredible.
Everybody gets on, and it's very worthwhile. So if anybody has spare time, it is a huge help to the club. And thanks to everybody.
Lovely people on the Tuesday.
Especially if they're plumbers.
Plumbers, Sparkies.
Yeah.
We definitely could do with a few Sparkies.
You might get a bacon roll on Sunday.
Builders, we could do builders.
Any more questions? Anyone? Can I ask one last question?
We got two more. Did you want to go first, Nigel?
What is morale like in the dressing room at the moment? You know, the lads must see some of the stuff that's being written.
It's fine. Brilliant. Ask Ian. He comes to training. He's around the lads.
They're all horrible to me.
You should do a bit more in that case.
It's as good as. I I think we know that we can do better. I think the lads know that we've got. What was good about the other night was we actually made them work for everything. We didn't give any silly goals away. We didn't make it easy for them. We did the basics well. That's all you can ask. How many games have we played, home and away, where we have just made the most basic errors to give games away? I think the other night they didn't do that. They defended properly. When we had the ball, we didn't take any risks. We were in a good shape, good balance, and we made life difficult. And I think that's why it was more of a start.
The reason I ask about morale, in general, is that there have been times, particularly we've seen some of the individual errors that have been on there, but that we can't ignore, but we have seen them getting at each other a little bit.
You will do though, because they know that they're individual errors.
How does it go back into the dressing room?
No. I mean, if you'd seen the boys last night at training, I said there's always a balance. I don't want people coming back in after we've been beat, laughing and joking and thinking everything's all right, because it's not. But there's also a balance of you've got to let that go, and you've got to look to the next one and make sure that you're together for the next one. So I think that, as we said, it depends which side of the stick you're looking at, which side of the fence you're coming down on. There's a balance to everything. They're a great group, they're a good group, they're good lads. There's not a bad one, not wrong amongst them. And I can't say that in previous years because we have had some couple of lads who have been wrong ones, but this group isn't. This group has at times been guilty of not concentrating, taking the foot off the gas, thinking they're better than they are. I think there's a realisation now that it's not a case of turning up and beating sides. What you think last year, we were 10, 11 games into the season unbeaten. It's a different side to that this year. But I think there's been a degree of laxity and intensity going into some games. And I'll give you a perfect example. Western away, we went 4-4-1-1, and I thought anyone who went to Western would have said, against a good Western side, let's make no bones about that, we played really well. We could have beaten them. We could have been 4 up in 20 minutes and beaten them comfortably. We then went to Beaconsfield a week later with the same side, and to say first half we were apathetic is an understatement. So we go from the same team at Western, who are magnificent, to Beaconsfield a week later, and they're apathetic, and we have to change the system at half time. And that, I think, for me, has been what's been the most frustrating part of this season, and probably goes back to the inconsistencies. We've got to Western, and we know they're a good side, so we're at it. We go to Beaconsfield, who've lost their previous 5 and drawn their last game, and think we've just got to turn up and we can win this game. And that's wrong. And that's something that we've as a mentality, we've got to get out. The other night, I thought that was spot on. The mentality, the approach to the game was spot on, and that's what we need more of.
How strong was that chipping inside?
That was strong. That was strong. You look at as I said, it reminded me of Southampton under-23s, as in the way the movement that they had, the way they kept the ball. They were very fluid. They've got some good players. That was, there's quite a few of the first team.
Oh yeah.
So
first team captain play.
Yeah, that wasn't. It wasn't their youth side or under-23s. I think there were 2, possibly 3 lads like we had. We had 2 or 3 lads who were, probably as in squad players or young players. But the best player on the pitch was one of those young lads for them, 17. I thought he was absolutely fantastic.
Good, yeah.
So they would not. I don't think they put out the first team would have been any stronger than what we saw the other night. That's why it was a good performance by us, because you've got to equate what you're up against. And I thought they're a decent side. There's teams in the Conference South a lot worse than those. And have a look at the results so far this year with regard to our level playing against Conference South. Hayes have just tonked Tunbridge 5-0, and somebody's what's the other side that won 5-0 the other day away from home? Tottenham won 5-0, and you've got there's some good quality, real good quality. This league is the toughest. Ask any manager this year. This is the toughest this league's ever been. So it's been a perfect storm we're in a way, but we're doing okay with 3 points off play. We're okay. We'll be all right. Let's say we'll keep going.
Okay, I think we'll do one more and then wrap it up, because I think Ian needs to rush off to dinner soon.
I'm going to be late.
You look famished, sir.
Helena will shout at me.
You still got a question, Pete?
It was just a quick one about match reports. Like, obviously, I know Alex sadly passed away, but there's been no match reports whatsoever on the website. I don't know if that's a dying form of media or not, but is it a way we can get match reports out there, promote, even sending to the journal ourselves saying, here's a match report, print it, type thing? Because, like you say, there's nothing in there these days.
You may have put yourself into a job there. That's the point. We haven't got it to do.
We have approached people. I've stopped short of obviously pleading on the website so far, but it is something we have discussed whether we do advertise for something. But we've tried with Andy, funnily enough, tried to bring students on board, and nobody has actually just said, "Yeah, come on, let's do it."
But if you want
to do it,
every game I
might have to edit some of your negativity, but
no,
you never know.
There's a difference between a match report and an opinion.
So yeah, if you do want to come on board with that, Pete, that'd be amazing. It is something we do want to do.
Yeah.
It's just it's not something I've got time to do.
You know, I'm at the vast majority of the game, so I'm happy to.
Any more questions, or are we now winding the forum up?
I think
it's been an interesting and open discussion tonight. I was glad to see so many of you here. I must admit I thought there'd only be sort of 15, 20 people here, so I was really pleased to see so many. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for your support from the football club. I mean, that's the most important thing, of course. And I hope we can continue to provide the entertainment and the success that Salisbury FC should provide for its fans and the people of Salisbury. We'd just like a few more of them to turn up, obviously.
Bring a friend. Very quickly before you'll disappear, I've got a model here.
Yeah. Anybody interested?
We've got the supporters club have their calendar out. It's out now. £8 a piece. Is that Sunday? You can do that one. I'm not plugging everything. Sunday market. What dates are you there?
12th and 19th.
12th and 19th of December. Gordon's going to be braving the Sunday market, and I think there might be a little panda turning up as well with him. Car boot on Sunday. Anything else?
Sunday.
What's happening Sunday?
Sunday.
Car boot. And everybody's going to turn up to every event now because we've pleaded with them to come, so that's going to happen. So it's going to be good. And the club shop's going to be open. Gordon's going to be in there. Gordon's a very busy man. But yeah, wear a mask in the club shop. Yeah. On sale now. Supporters Club desk over there. £8. Christmas. Stock and filling's lovely. Thank you everybody for turning up. Thanks to Stephen Ian for